Welcome to Downing Street, where the race to be the next Prime Minister is on, but who will end up addressing the nation from that famous lectern? Let's take a look at the contenders. We've got Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson. He went to Eton and then to Oxford, because having a daft middle name seems to be compulsory for these things. Jeremy Richard Strensham Hunt. He went to Charterhouse and Oxford. But fresh faces in politics, they are not. The pair of them have been knocking around in the front line for more than a decade.
Never mind that one.
So how did we end up here? Tory MPs whittled down the huge field of contenders to just two. Boris Johnson getting 160 votes, Jeremy Hunt 77. Now it's down to 160,000 Tory party members, but not the rest of us. They get to choose the Prime Minister, which will be announced at the end of July. So let's talk about Brexit. Boris Johnson says he's going to get us out by October the 31st, deal or no deal.
We must leave the EU on October the 31st.
Jeremy Hunt, on the other hand, is ever so slightly less definite.
The political risk of no Brexit is far worse than the economic risk of no deal. And I would take us out of the European Union in that situation. But it wouldn't be
guaranteed.
100%, but it would not be my choice.
Let's talk strengths and weaknesses. Boris Johnson's strength is that he's Boris Johnson. People know who he is. He makes the Tory party feel good about themselves.
Can you hear me?
His weakness? He's Boris Johnson. He's prone to gaffes. He's basically been locked up by his campaign team, refusing to face any real scrutiny on TV, radio or in newspapers. In that sense, Jeremy Hunt's biggest strength is probably that he's not Boris Johnson. Lots of people think he'd be quite a good Prime Minister dealing with the day-to-day grind of the job, but would he win a general election? He is, it has to be said, a bit dull.
I am Jeremy.
Unkind friends say he's like Theresa May in trousers. At a time when politics has been painted in populist primary colours, he's a man who likes to deal in more nuanced pastel shades.
Thank you.
So to the gaffes. And where do you start with Boris Johnson? There was this. And then there was this.
Look at what Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe was doing. It's just, she was simply teaching people journalism.
And at the start of the campaign, he even refused to answer questions about his private life.
I don't think they want to hear about that kind of thing.
Never mind the bottomless pit of quotes, from likening the burqa to letterboxes, talking about piccaninnies and watermelon smiles, and upsetting the whole of Liverpool. That's not to say that Jeremy Hunt isn't averse to a gaffe or two himself. Soon after becoming Foreign Secretary, he did this.
The EU was set up to protect freedom. It was the Soviet Union that stopped people leaving.
And then he also got into a bit of a muddle about whether or not his wife was Japanese or Chinese.
Also, my wife is Japanese. My wife is Chinese.
And then soon after launching his leadership campaign, he said this.
The legal time limit for abortion being reduced from 24 weeks to 12 weeks. Is that still your view?
Well, these are matters of conscience. Yes, my view hasn't changed on that.
So which of these two multi-millionaire posh schoolboys with daft middle names and a penchant for gaffes are going to end up moving in behind me as the next Prime Minister? YouGov polling for the Times puts Boris Johnson well ahead, extending his lead in the early weeks over Jeremy Hunt from 34 to 48 points ahead. Most Tory members think Boris Johnson will take Britain out of the EU by October the 31st. Most think Jeremy Hunt won't. However, Boris Johnson has been finding the campaign much harder than he might have expected. And rule number one in British politics is that Tory leadership frontrunners never win. But if there's one thing politics has taught us in the last year or two, it's that rules are made to be broken.